Welcome to the deep dive. So, you came to us with a whole stack of sources, really laying out this situation that I think a lot of people find themselves in. You're doing everything by the book, training consistently, getting good sleep, nailing the nutrition. But still, you hit this wall. Workouts just feel harder than they should. Maybe endurance feels flat, and that satisfying muscle pump is just kind of weak or missing altogether.
Yeah, it's super frustrating, isn't it? When you feel like you're ticking all the boxes, but the results just aren't there. And it's easy to jump to conclusions like, oh, I'm plateauing, or maybe I'm overtraining. But the sources you shared, they point towards something maybe a bit more subtle, like a hidden factor that could be, well, sabotaging performance from the inside out.
Exactly. And based on all that material you sent over, that hidden factor seems to be pointing pretty strongly towards declining nitric oxide, or NO. So for this deep dive, our mission is really to unpack what nitric oxide actually is, why it's surprisingly so important for exercise, how you might recognize if yours is declining, and maybe most importantly, what your sources suggest can actually be done about it. We're pulling all this straight from the material you gave us.
Okay, yeah, let's start right there. What is this nitric oxide, this NO stuff? Your sources describe it as a tiny signaling molecule. It's actually a gas. So not like a protein or something structural, but a gas that carries messages in the body.
A gas
Yeah.
carrying messages. Okay, that sounds pretty fundamental, maybe a little unusual too. Where does the body even make something like that?
Well, the material points mainly to the endothelium. That's the delicate inner lining of your blood vessels. Think of it like the control panel, right there inside the plumbing, so to speak.
Okay, inside the blood vessels. And what's its main job from that control panel? What
Yeah.
message is this gas sending out?
Its primary role, really, is to tell the smooth muscle that surrounds those blood vessels to relax, just chill out. And when that muscle relaxes, the blood vessels widen. That process is called vasodilation.
Ah, vasodilation. Okay, I see the connection now. Wider vessels, that means more blood can flow through, right?
Precisely, yeah. During exercise, especially intense exercise, your muscles are screaming for more blood flow. They need oxygen, they need nutrients like glucose, amino acids, and they need to get rid of waste products. Good NO production allows for that vasodilation, making sure the supply lines can handle that huge demand.
So if NO levels are low, it's kind of like the delivery trucks and the garbage trucks can't keep up, even if the muscles are calling for them.
That's a really good way to put it, yeah. And here's a key thing the sources really highlight, maybe a bit surprising. NO production starts to naturally decline relatively early. Often, it begins in your late 20s.
Late 20s, wow.
Yeah, and things like chronic stress, maybe a not so great diet, not enough sleep, even some environmental toxins, they can speed up that decline. So this age and lifestyle drop could be a big, often overlooked reason why workouts just feel harder over time, even if your training hasn't changed much.
Late 20s, huh? That is definitely earlier than I think most people would guess for something impacting performance to start kicking in. Okay, so how does this lower NO actually show up? Let's look endurance first. Running, cycling, that kind of thing. How does low NO affect sustained effort?
Well, endurance is all about efficient oxygen delivery, right? Your sources show that with good NO levels and the better blood flow that comes with it, your muscles just get more oxygen. And that directly helps delay fatigue, allowing you to hold a higher intensity for longer.
Okay. I think I remember the sources mentioning something about mitochondria too. Those are the energy factories in the cells. How does NO fit in there?
Right, that's another really interesting piece. It's not just about the oxygen delivery pipeline. NO seems to also support how efficiently your mitochondria actually work. So better mitochondrial function means your cells are better at producing energy during those long sessions. Plus, that improved blood flow helps clear out metabolic waste faster, lactate, that burning feeling. Clearing that helps you push through tough spots and maybe even recover a bit quicker between hard efforts, like intervals.
So are we saying then, based on the research, that someone who optimizes this NO pathway might feel like they can hold a higher heart rate more easily, or recover faster between sprints, or just keep their power output steadier on a long bike ride? So, star speaker, exactly. It's about tuning up the basic machinery and the delivery systems that fuel that endurance performance. It makes the whole system run smoother.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense for longer efforts. But what about recovery? I mean, that's huge for making progress week after week. How does NO play into bouncing back? Recovery is absolutely vital, yeah. And the sources really emphasize NO's role in both the immediate recovery, like between your sets in the gym, and the longer-term recovery between your actual training sessions. Think about it. Getting nutrients in to repair tissue, getting waste products out, that all depends heavily on good blood flow, which depends on NO.
So, okay, between sets, Better NO means getting rid of that lactate and hydrogen ions, the stuff that makes you burn, faster.
Exactly right. Clearing that out quicker means less intense burn, which helps you maintain your strength and performance across, say, 5 sets instead of dropping off hard after just 1 or 2. Then, after the workout's done, that better blood flow helps manage the inflammation that's necessary for healing, but keeps it from becoming excessive. It promotes productive recovery.
And delivering the building blocks, like amino acids for muscle repair.
Absolutely crucial. Enhanced blood flow means amino acids, glucose for glycogen, other key compounds get delivered faster right to the muscle tissue. That directly supports muscle protein synthesis, replenishes energy stores. Basically, it helps you adapt better and be ready for your next workout sooner.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit to something really specific for strength training. The muscle pump. Your sources were saying this isn't just vanity, it actually means something physiologically.
Yeah, that's a really cool insight the sources bring up. When you lift weights, your muscles demand a huge increase in blood flow, right? Nano steps in, triggers vasodilation, lets all that blood rush into the muscle tissue. The actual feeling of the pump comes from that increased blood volume, physically swelling the muscle and sort of temporarily restricting the blood flowing back out.
Right, okay. And the benefits of getting a good pump, according to the sources. What makes an NO-driven pump potentially more than just feeling swole?
They mention a few things. One is the mechanical stretch on the muscle fascia, that connective tissue sheath around the muscle. That stretch itself might trigger some growth signals. Also, think about it. More blood flowing in means a higher concentration of nutrients, amino acids, maybe growth factors, bathing the muscle cells, especially right after exercise when they're receptive. And some research suggests the cell swelling itself, just the physical expansion, might directly stimulate protein synthesis.
Wow, okay, that's really interesting. It kind of suggests that those experienced lifters who use how good their pump feels as a sort of workout gauge might actually be onto something real. Like, a weak pump could genuinely mean blood flow isn't optimal, maybe because NO is declining?
It can definitely be a practical, sort of real-time indicator for some people. If you feel like you're putting in the work, but that typical feeling of fullness and tightness in the muscle is weak or takes forever to achieve or fades really fast, it's definitely worth asking what might be limiting blood flow. And yeah, according to your sources, declining NO is a prime candidate to consider.
So, okay, how would someone even know if their NO production might be dipping? What are the actual signs, based on the material, that we should maybe look out for in our training, or just how we feel?
Your sources point out these signs often creep up gradually, which makes them easy to brush off as just, getting older or being a bit tired. Often the first thing is just a subtle decrease in exercise capacity. Maybe weights you usually handle feel surprisingly heavy, or your normal run feels like way more effort, even when your sleep and diet seem fine.
Like maybe needing longer rests between sets than usual, or feeling like your performance just tanks faster during the workout itself.
Absolutely. That difficulty recovering between sets is a classic sign that your body isn't clearing those byproducts efficiently, which points right back to blood flow. And changes in the muscle pump quality, like we just talked about, that's another big one for lifters, but also more general things like just feeling workouts are harder, overall higher perceived exertion, or needing an extra day or two to feel recovered between sessions. These can all hint that your cardiovascular system isn't quite as responsive, possibly linked to lower NO.
It really does seem to circle back to that core issue of delivery and waste removal, doesn't it? So if someone suspects their NO might be suboptimal, what lifestyle factors did the sources say have the biggest impact on production?
Diet comes up again and again as foundational. Specifically, nitrates found in leafy green vegetables, think spinach, arugula, bok choy, and especially concentrated in beetroot. Your body takes these dietary nitrates, converts them first to nitrites, and then into NO. And this conversion process is apparently really efficient in the low oxygen conditions you find in working muscles during exercise.
Right, I've definitely heard about beetroot juice. What about L-arginine? I hear that mentioned a lot too. Is that another key precursor?
It is another precursor, yeah, found in protein foods. But the sources point out a potential catch with arginine. A lot of it can get metabolized by the gut and liver before it even gets into the bloodstream, where it could be used to make NO. So its effectiveness can be limited. This suggests dietary nitrates might be a more, let's say, reliable or direct route, according to the material we looked at. Oh, and antioxidants like vitamin C, vitamin E, they're important too, because they help protect the NO molecule itself from being degraded too quickly by oxidative stress.
Okay, diet makes sense. What about things outside of food, like sleep and stress levels?
Huge factors. The sources are clear. Chronic stress, And not getting enough quality sleep directly impair endothelial function, that blood vessel lining, which in turn reduces NO production. So really prioritizing good sleep and finding ways to manage stress isn't just good for your head, it actually creates a better internal environment for making NO.
And then there's that kind of catch-22 the sources mentioned, exercise itself.
Yeah, it's a bit paradoxical, isn't it? Regular exercise, especially things like cardio and high-intensity interval training, HIIT, is actually a powerful way to stimulate the enzyme nitric oxide synthase that makes NO. So you sort of need enough NO to exercise optimally, but you also need to exercise consistently to keep your NO production healthy over the long term. It's a positive feedback loop you want to maintain.
Okay, so pulling all that together then, what are the most effective natural ways the sources recommend for supporting healthy NR levels day to day?
Well, the most sustainable long-term strategy really seems to be dietary, making a conscious effort to get those nitrate-rich veggies in daily. Leafy greens, beets, beetroot juice gets a specific mention quite often because it's so concentrated and the effects can be relatively quick.
Is there an ideal timing for eating those nitrate foods?
The suggestion from the sources is generally about 2 to 3 hours before you plan to exercise. That gives your body time for that conversion process. An interesting little detail the material brought up, eating vitamin C-rich foods like citrus or berries, along with your nitrates, might actually help the conversion work better. And, maybe surprisingly, steer clear of antibacterial mouthwash, especially right around the time you eat nitrates. Turns out, certain bacteria in your mouth are crucial for the very first step of converting nitrate to nitrite.
Wow, okay, mouthwash. Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, it's quite specific. And then beyond diet, just consistently doing that regular exercise, like we said, particularly cardio and HIIT, to keep stimulating the NO-making machinery. And finally, actively working on stress reduction, meditation, yoga, even just deep breathing helps keep your endothelium healthy and happy, supporting NO production indirectly.
Okay, so lifestyle and diet are foundational, but what about targeted supplementation? Your sources dug into that too as another potential tool.
Yes, they did. Supplementation can definitely offer extra support, especially if maybe your diet isn't always perfect or if your training demands are really high. We already touched on L-arginine and its potential limitations because of how it's metabolized first pass.
Right. So newer supplements are looking at different angles.
Exactly. The material talks about approaches that focus more on providing those dietary nitrates directly or supporting that nitrate to nitrite to NO pathway. Or they might provide cofactors that help the nitric oxide synthase enzyme work better. Citrulline is another one often mentioned as potentially more effective than arginine. The idea is that citrulline gets converted to arginine in the kidneys, kind of bypassing that initial breakdown in the gut, so more might be available for NO synthesis.
The sources also mention these comprehensive formulas. Sometimes they used examples like the idea behind a product maybe called Nitric Boost Ultra or something. What's the thinking behind combining multiple ingredients like that?
The rationale, according to the sources, is basically to hit the problem from multiple angles. To support NO production through several different potential pathways at once for maybe a more robust effect. So you might see nitrates combined with citrulline, maybe other amino acids, and often antioxidants like vitamin C or grapeseed extract to help protect the NO once it's made. I think the key takeaway from the research you shared when looking at supplements is to find products with clean ingredients that are actually aimed at supporting NO production and blood flow for sustainable energy and better performance, rather than just being packed with a ton of stimulants that give you a temporary artificial buzz and maybe mask the underlying issue. The goal should be better function, not just feeling wired.
Yeah, that difference between improving how things actually work versus just jacking yourself up with stimulants feels really important, especially if you train late or you're sensitive to that stuff.
Totally. Focusing on blood flow via NO support often leads to a cleaner, more steady kind of energy boost because you're literally improving the delivery system to your muscles, not just hitting the panic button on your nervous system.
This has been super insightful, covering what NO is, why it matters, how to support it. But one last crucial piece. When does the material suggest it's time to stop tweaking lifestyle and supplements and maybe talk to a doctor or a healthcare professional about performance issues?
That's a really critical point the sources definitely emphasize. If you've genuinely put effort into these strategies, you've cleaned up your diet, you're managing stress, sleeping well, maybe tried some appropriate, clean, NO-supporting supplements, and you're still experiencing this persistent, unexplained drop in your exercise capacity or performance, that's a clear signal to seek professional medical advice.
And why is that the necessary next step? What's the concern?
Because what might seem like just a workout issue or maybe low NO could potentially be an early warning sign of an underlying cardiovascular problem that really needs proper medical attention. Things like persistent fatigue that just feels way out of proportion to your activity, or getting unusually short of breath during things that used to feel easy, or just significant ongoing changes in how much exercise you can tolerate, those all warrant a conversation with your doctor.
And blood pressure fits in here too, right? Isn't that connected?
It is, very much so. High blood pressure often goes hand in hand with impaired endothelial function and reduced NO production. The sources suggest that keeping an eye on your blood pressure, getting it checked regularly, and discussing it with your doctor is important not just for general health, but because it reflects the health of your vascular system and its ability to make NO properly. And for athletes or serious fitness folks, consulting with a sports medicine doctor or maybe an exercise physiologist could also offer really tailored guidance.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up then, it really sounds like that annoying feeling, that frustration when workouts just feel off, it isn't necessarily just something you have to accept as part of training hard or getting older.
Yeah, not according to the sources you brought us. It seems declining nitric oxide production is potentially a really key and often missed piece of the whole performance puzzle. It clearly impacts endurance, how fast you recover, even that muscle pump quality. When NO isn't working well, those things tend to suffer.
But the upside is it's not necessarily a fixed situation. The decline isn't automatically permanent.
Exactly. The research strongly suggests there's real potential to improve things by consciously addressing NO levels. That means focusing on those nitrate-rich foods, dialing in lifestyle factors like sleep and stress, and maybe using smart targeted supplementation that supports the actual NO pathways. It seems like a combined, comprehensive approach based on everything in your sources is the way to go.
So if you've been feeling like workouts are harder than they should be, recovery's dragging, or that pump is just MIA, thinking about whether nitric oxide decline might be involved isn't just a minor tweak. It could be a pretty fundamental factor holding back your progress.
It definitely gives you a different angle to look at those training frustrations, doesn't it?
It really does. Which kind of leaves us with this final thought for you to chew on, pulling together everything we've discussed today. If optimizing something as basic as your body's blood flow and nutrient delivery system through nitric oxide can make such a difference in how your muscles work, recover, and grow, what other, maybe seemingly small or hidden physiological factors might also be quietly limiting your physical potential in ways you haven't even thought about yet?